Okay, good morning, everybody. This is surreal. I feel like I'm at a silent disco. Hands up if you can actually hear what I'm saying. Oh, thank God. Okay, it feels very strange. Hi, so my name's Emily Foges, and I'm the CEO of Luminance, which is the artificial intelligence platform for the legal profession. The reason Luminance exists is because the legal profession obviously is rooted in convention, but is facing a very modern challenge, and that challenge is very real. The fact that lawyers, corporate lawyers in particular, have to read everything, and it's no longer possible to read everything because there is too much of everything to read, is the challenge that everyone in the legal profession is facing today, and that is the reason that Luminance exists. There we go. All right. So Luminance uses the latest developments in machine learning technology from the University of Cambridge. And what it does with that is it reads and understands vast quantities of documentation, and then it learns. It learns from the interaction between lawyers and those documents to get better and better at understanding what they say. So what that gives you is speed and rigor from day one when you first use the platform. But what it doesn't do, and this is really crucial, what it doesn't do is replace the lawyer. What it does is gives the lawyer the opportunity to read and understand far more documentation without compromise, without having to dumb down, without having to trust that a computer is doing their job as well as they do. What Luminance does is it gives you more control over the results of your analysis and greater confidence in the advice that you're giving. So because obviously it's a machine, so as a machine, it can read and understand vast quantities of documents at the same time, in parallel, compare them, find the patterns in the language, find the standards, find the deviations. What that means for you as a lawyer, how many lawyers have we got in the audience? Okay, some. So what that means for the lawyer is that your time is freed up for much higher value activities. So that overall should save time, save money, and give a better service to your clients. Now, so it sounds like a complete no-brainer, right? But has it actually led to a practical revolution in this very conventional profession that has been around for centuries without changing very much at all? So the answer is yes, there's been a lot of change. So in just over 18 months since we launched Luminance as a platform, we've got over 80 customers in 26 countries on 5 continents. So that's a pretty speedy rate of adoption by anybody's standards. Started out working with M&A lawyers, so corporate lawyers conducting due diligence on behalf of their clients, and now shifting into the world of the in-house legal team needing to understand their own documents, and also litigation teams conducting big discovery investigations. We've got 10 out of the top 100, global top 100 law firms using the platform, and also some very small players, so some law firms that have only got 2 partners, and some in-house legal teams who are very resource constrained. So it's a very clear need. There's a very clear need in the industry for something to change. However, one thing that I think we've learned in the last 18 months has come across very clearly is that if you have a clear goal, then you can change. Actually, when you look at a law firms have a partner model, so that's kind of interesting. You've got lots of different P&Ls and lots of different people responsible for those P&Ls. So as a cohesive whole, you don't always get clearly aligned goals for what you're trying to achieve with technology. Different things happen when you look at the big 4, so you look at big consultancies who are involved in legal activities as part of the work that they do on things like mergers and acquisitions and regulatory change, and also the legal process outsourcers. So they're very interesting. If you think about how they're going to adopt technology, their approach is going to be very different from a law firm. Their approach is going to be to think about it as a business problem, to think about how they need to change, what that means to their processes, and how they become better at what they do and make better use of the resources that they've got. It's not the natural way of thinking for a law firm, and it never has been, but that's all starting to change now. We've also got, at the other end of the spectrum, we've got the in-house legal teams. So if you look at an in-house legal team, there's a very different model there, normally very resource constrained. So you don't actually have enough people to do the work that you do, you don't have enough time to do the work that you do. It's a very conventional model in that sense. So there's a very clear need. So what happens when you've got a very clear need and a very clear goal is the technology comes along to solve the problem, and you embrace it and you see real results very, very fast. So what happens in a law firm is slightly different. And I think we've been watching this over the last 18 months and seeing law firms with a real desire to change and a real understanding of the technology and real inquiring minds wanting to know how this works. But actually when it comes to moving a whole organization and moving the mindset of an organization to work in a different way, that's more of a challenge. So I'll give you some examples. So when you look at that modern challenge that I was talking about earlier, when you look at what lawyers are facing today, some very kind of high-profile examples, so GDPR and Brexit. So what that means if you're an in-house legal team is this big change comes along and you've got thousands and thousands of contracts in all sorts of different repositories all over the place, drafted at different times, and you don't actually know what they say. You've got lots of people, sometimes 1,000 people in that legal team, especially in one of the big banks. Drafting contracts. How do you know what your contracts say so that you know whether you need to change them? These changes come along all the time, and there's a new challenge every year. And actually, there isn't time for the technology to go and learn what that means. You need technology that can adapt in real time and work with you in real time to understand the challenge that you're facing. So I'll just give you these two examples now so that you can understand how that might work. So GDPR, back end of 2017, we started to get distress calls, typically from banks, so big high street retail banks, who had worked out that they needed to analyze all of their contracts and they needed to do it fast and they didn't have enough people to do it. So you've got some options. You outsource it, you give it to some paralegals to do, you set the paralegals the task. You don't know those paralegals and those paralegals don't know your business, but you've got to trust that they are going to do the best thing for you and go off and find what's in those contracts and deliver that result back to you. Or you have a look at how technology can solve the problem. Now this was really exciting for us because what Luminance did, Luminance sucked up all of those contracts and looked at them and compared them, unsupervised. Now all by itself, Luminance is looking at the patterns in language and the standards and deviations and comparing them, but it doesn't know what that means. It's not a lawyer. It can't replace the lawyer. It's technology. It doesn't have real world experience. It doesn't work in that bank. It doesn't understand how that bank operates. But the in-house legal team does because they live and breathe it. So for that in-house legal team to be able to use Luminance, not to replace their expertise, but to power through 9 weeks of work in 7 days. So that was actually what happened. They worked out that there were 9 weeks of work to be done. They powered through it in 7 days. And at the end of that process, I said to them, right, is this a success or not? So on paper, you look at the speed and you look at the efficiency and you think, right, 9 weeks down to 7 days is great, as long as you've got confidence in those results. And actually their response was that their confidence in the results was greater because working with Luminance meant, first of all, it was them. They weren't giving it to somebody else to do. They weren't trusting that somebody else was going to do the job as well as they would. They were doing it themselves. Secondly, they were able to use the results that Luminance had brought for them of saying, all of these are the same, all of these are the same, these ones are different over here, to really understand their contracts in greater detail than they could possibly do manually. So this is not about making a compromise. This is not about losing control of that analysis. This is about using the technology to augment what you do and make you better. Give that technology to the paralegals, you would not get the same results. We're not replacing the lawyer here, working with the lawyer to make better use of their time, better use of their expertise, and also to make sure that they remain in control of their own contracts and their own documentation. Same thing with Brexit. Nobody knows what they're looking for. Nobody knows what's in those contracts. No one can train a machine to say, go and find this clause is good, this clause is bad, because you don't know what's there. Okay, thank you very much. So the same thing happens there. You can power through that analysis in a fraction of the time and gain control, get better confidence in those results. So in conclusions, I've just been given a timeout. So Luminance is not about replacing the lawyer. This is about making better use of the lawyer. And as we move the legal profession from the bureaucratic age to the information age, there is the opportunity to make better use of the legal minds. This is not about destroying that whole profession. Thank you very much.